Good evening. I hope you can all hear me. I'd like to welcome you to our presentation today. We'll be starting very shortly, so please feel free to add any questions at any time to the comment section on the right-hand side of your screen. We will answer these at the end of our presentation. Please feel free to also introduce yourself, and if you would like to add an emoji as well, that would be really great. Finally, we just ask that you are respectful in asking comments or using the comment section, and only ask appropriate questions. Thank you.
So, thank you, Liam. Now that we're all here, we're going to start the presentation. We'll begin by introducing ourselves. So, hello, guys. My name is Amisha. I'm a third year economics student from India.
Hello, my name is Liam. I'm a second year politics student from London.
And hi, I'm Sophie. I'm an exchange student coming from Germany, and I study liberal arts in my final year.
So, welcome all to our talk. Our talk today is going to be on healthy and sustainable food. In the next half hour, we'll give you some ideas on how we can all eat for a better future. Hope you're all excited. So, a well discussed topic in this age is climate change. Some topics that often come up in a climate change discussion are the earth getting hotter, GHG emissions, and how the world is expected to end in 2050. I remember how 2012 was the supposed end date too. But since we're all still here, let's work towards finding some more ways to prolong our lives on the planet. Every person's actions matter. We can all make small adjustments to our lifestyle to make them better for the earth as well as for our own bodies. The first thing that always comes to our mind when we talk about climate change on an individual level is the carbon footprints. So, I took a small test on WWF about carbon footprints, and these are my results. It said 64% for travel, 9% for food, 16% for stuff, and 11% for my home habits. Being an international student coming all the way from India explains the travel part of my carbon footprints due to the long international flights to and fro uni, making this a little bit out of my control. But the other 36% is something I tend to maximize with my lifestyle. And today we'll discuss how we can maximize the 9% that comes under the food category. You might be wondering why I'm still discussing this topic right now and how relevant it is today. Well, in 2021, when COVID was accompanied by so many natural catastrophes like floods, forest fire, heat waves, something striking I saw on a personal level was my sister, who studies in Delhi, had her classes cancelled and moved online due to high pollution. To put in perspective what the situation in Delhi was, the air quality of Delhi that week was around 422, which comes in the category for hazardous. And in the same period, the air quality of Coventry, where the university is based, was 12, which is a very stark difference. Now, as I mentioned, 64% of my carbon footprints can be attributed to the long haul international flights I've used between home and university. But we all unconsciously contribute a great deal of carbon footprints due to flights, even sitting at home, which can be attributed to the food we consume. A great deal of the fruits and vegetables we found in our local supermarkets are imported. You'll see a label reading product of Spain, a product of Italy on a lot of the food items. They're transported in the form of cargo to the country, which means their footprints aren't just based off of the fertilizer and water consumption, but also on the air cargo they flew in through. Then again, the question arises, why should we care? These are things that are such large scale that you might think you cannot make changes as one single person. But to bring it from a macro to a micro level, I'm going to ask you one simple question. What is your favorite food? Please use the comment or chat section to answer this question. You can name a dish, a fruit, a vegetable, or anything that comes to your mind when I ask you this question. Personally, my favorite is pani puri, which is like an Indian street food that we have back at home. And while you are still typing these answers, I'm going to show you some responses that came in from my friends on my Instagram. So here are the responses. As you see biryani, kiwi, pasta, pani puri, ice cream. And yes, we have somebody saying chocolate. And a lot of the dishes that mushrooms that have been mentioned here are some common ingredients in the dishes mentioned even by my friends. So this slide is a compilation of some of the popular ingredients used in all of these dishes. Yes, we also have sushi, melons, vada pav, all of these ingredients. What if I told you by 2030, which is barely 8 years away, we might face some constraints on availability of these ingredients? So I read a research paper which showed by that we have lots of ingredients that might not grow just as easily due to the climate changes. This slide that we see right now indicates how we have heat waves and water shortages which will affect the ingredients mentioned in front of them. Imagine wanting to have, I don't know, one of your favorite dishes and looking for alternatives for the main basic ingredients to make them. So, to help delay having these large scale drastic hits to our food cycles and habits, we all need to take one step towards being more sustainable and being human. Now that I've put forward the problem we're discussing and we're all on the same page, we'll discuss some solutions. And Liam will now lead this part of the presentation.
So being healthy, eating healthily, and leading a healthy lifestyle are important cornerstones of our wider well-being. We naturally want to live long, healthy lives where we have the ability to do what we enjoy doing without the barriers of physical and mental ailments. To begin with, it is important to note what is expected from eating a balanced diet. This is encouraged by our medical practitioners and local authorities to ensure we maintain a healthy lifestyle and eat the right products. According to the NHS, this should consist of a minimum of 5 portions of different fruit and vegetables each day, a few portions of foods that are based around fiber and starch, some dairy, protein, and a small proportion of oils and spreads, and between 6 and 8 portions of fluids each day. By keeping to these guidelines, diminishing our intake in high fat and processed foods, we can positively contribute to overall healthy well-being. Now, let us think about this. Statistically, you are more likely to have a heart attack if you have high cholesterol diet or you are obese. It is also the case that you are more likely to suffer from certain cancers if you follow these specific conditions, in addition to eating specifically a lot of processed meats. I think I've made my point here. If we stick to a healthy, balanced diet, we will improve our chances of fighting against illness and disease. So that is good, isn't it? Yes, we can improve our well-being. But can we link this to curbing our negative impact on the local environment? In other words, how can you help and how can you be helped? Drawing upon what we have discussed, let me share with you these ideas. Firstly, it is important to note the significant link between our environment and our natural health. Where we live, where we go, and what we do all play an important part in shaping the functions of our body. But our natural health, or more specifically, how we seek to maintain it, can play a positive role in protecting our environment. Let us use an example. You'll all be aware of that dreaded word, best before dates. What does this conjure up for you? Panic in the supermarkets as we empty the entire shelf, looking for the product which has the latest date. But believe me, this isn't entirely crucial. Yes, for some products, they definitely go off after a certain date and will be dangerous to eat after that. However, they will then be labelled as expiry dates. For fruit and vegetables, it is often safe to consume them after their best before dates within specific reason. Freezing them, as I do with spring onions and coriander, which you can see in the photos I took, means that they often maintain their life for many more days or weeks. I wanted your special attention to why freezing fruit and vegetables can provide significant health benefits. As I mentioned previously, it is recommended that you eat at least 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. This is because they often wield the necessary vitamins and minerals that provide for the maintenance of crucial body functions and wider well-being. Many scientists have linked this specifically to the case of blue zones, which are certain locations across the world with notably high life expectancies and generally widespread healthy lifestyles. These include both Sardinia in Italy and Okinawa in Japan. Those who have studied these areas have noticed that the diets tend to include a significant quantity of fruit and vegetables, in addition to various quantities of proteins and carbohydrates. However, in particular, there is often a strong encouragement to utilize organic and fresh produce. Residents may utilize space in their urban local environment to grow their required fruit or vegetables. They may also simply shop in local farmers markets or shops. However, the benefits to the environment are great, whilst also helping the health of our bodies. Organic foods use minimal pesticides, which is important for consumer health and the natural ecosystem. They also require less energy to produce and transport, thus helping to limit environmental degradation. Taken from this, our daily actions can therefore be a positively double-edged sword. But how else can this be the case? Now let's pass on to Sophie to find out more.
Thanks a lot, Liam. So when we talk about food, we usually have pictures like this in our mind. Or maybe like this. So we tend to think about food as products. So you can see, for example, the bread or the soup. As Amisha and Liam pointed out already, there's so much more connected to food that cannot be easily seen, like the carbon footprints or the close connection to our individual well-being. I will add another point. The importance of people who contribute to the food on our tables. Their health and well-being is closely connected to the food that we eat. We would like to give you some practical tips to make your personal food consumption not only healthy and sustainable, but also socially responsible. And we hope you're excited. So we would like to start with fair trade. You probably have heard of fair trade already. The general idea is to ensure that environmental, developmental, and social standards are met in the production of food or other goods. Fair trade labels can make this transparent to the consumers and help to act upon their values. So I would like to make a short quiz with you. How many of you have already heard or seen some of these fair trade logos? Comment with the number of logos you have already seen somewhere. And if we missed some of the logos you know, you can also add them in the chat. I can't see any comments yet. The first ones arrive. Yeah, 3 or 4, which is already quite good. Fair trade. Okay, I think most people recognize between 3 and 4 of these labels, which is already quite good. But do you actually know how what they are standing for exactly? Before my research, I knew that these labels exist, but had no further information of their actual meaning. I thought every label is good in a way. But actually, the standards of labels differ a lot. Not every label has the same criteria, which could be minimum wage or job security. Therefore, it is good to know which of them have a high standard and which of them are not really reliable. So we had a look through many of these different labels and their evaluation and came up with the following graph that could help us to make more informed choices. So on the left-hand side, they are mostly company brands, for example, Nestle, Starbucks, or Mondelez, which has like Cocoa Life as their logo. Mondelez produces, for example, Oreo or Cadbury. For these labels, the farm or plantation is being only monitored once, right before receiving the label. And after that, there's no subsequent examination. Also, these labels only have low requirements to get into. Unsurprisingly, there are accusations of being involved in human trafficking and child labor. Only a few months ago, actually, there was a new complaint against Mondelez and Nestle regarding child labor. On the right-hand side, you can see labels that have higher standards. Often they include a wide variety of criteria that benefit both the environment and the workers. For example, by protecting the biodiversity, but also by fostering democratic decision-making processes or having specific policies for maternity, sickness, and retirement. We created a handout that you can find in the YouTube description at the end of our talk. So don't worry if you can't remember everything right from the spot. Another, more local way of valuing the people who produce our food can be found here. This is a picture of a CSA near Rugby. CSA means Community Supported Agriculture and is a partnership between farmers and consumers in which the responsibilities, risks, and rewards of farming are shared. Let me explain you how that works in practice. So you can see Tom in the right of the picture. Tom loves fresh and organic vegetables and occasionally freezes them to preserve their important vitamins, of course. He knows that the farmers have a tough time, especially as climate change brings more unpredictable weather, like drought or rainstorm. So he decided to get a membership in his nearest CSA. For next year, Tom pays a fixed price every month and gets a box each week with vegetables from the current season. This allows Kim, on the other hand, and her co-workers to plan the harvest for the upcoming year. They know that even if the harvest is poor, they will not lose their livelihood and won't be forced to give up the farm. From time to time, Kim and her colleagues sit together with all the CSA members, including Tom, and give updates what happened on the farm. They also talk about the wishes of the members and let them decide whether they would like to have, for example, more carrots or more tomatoes in their veg box in the upcoming year. At Kim's farm, as at many other CSAs, there's also the opportunity to come directly to the farm and help with the work. In this way, members can spend time in nature, learn new skills, have physical exercise, and teach their children about their food and nature. This is a great way to reconnect and acknowledge all aspects involved in the food process, seeing the close connection between the people and the environment. So if you want to find out more, go onto the CSI website. The link is also in the handout. But there are also alternatives that come close to the positive impacts of these CSAs, for example, responsible veg boxes and a visit at your local farmers market. And if you're a student from Warwick University, you can also join the Allotment Society, which is fun, I think. So Today, we talked about a lot of things, and maybe you're tired right now and all the food on the slides made you hungry. But we would like to pass on to you something that is quite simple. So do whatever feels right for you. Try out different things in little steps, because habits need some time to change. Now you know maybe why it's worth it going those steps and why it's so important to speak more about what is on our plates. You can find the most important tips and our most important things and our practical tips when clicking on the link of this YouTube video. As I mentioned, I think 3 times right now. But before you click onto that, we will still have some fun things to do. We would like you to sign in for a short quiz first. And after that, we planned a little Q&A session where you can ask all the burning questions that you might have. So feel free to add new questions in the chat.
So please log into www.menti.com and use the code 28783220, or you can also just scan the QR code and you'll be redirected to a small quiz. For your convenience, I'll also put the Mentimeter link in the comment below as a link. Please feel free to just log in and answer for a bit. So I hope this was enough time for you all to answer the short quiz that we had presented. Now, moving on to the Q&A. Thank you so much for everybody who stayed engaged throughout the presentation and had comments throughout. And we also have some questions in the chats already. Feel free to drop in questions right now, but we'll start with the questions that are already in the chat. So one of the first questions that we came across was, yeah, hello. So is ketchup as healthy as a tomato? So I'll be taking this question. Ketchup is not necessarily as healthy because we categorize them in different ways, where ketchup will come in the preservatives and preserved foods, and tomato will be, of course, in a vegetable fresh food section. Something that Liam covered was a 5-a-day rule that we have for fruits. It will come in that category. So yes. And something that I also want to address was Oliphant's message saying, yes, you notice a difficulty with availability of meat, lamb, chicken, and all of these. Yes, it is some of the most obvious ones. And this also affects our food availability in general for other categories as well. Another question is, we need apps for these. Are we making one? So, yes, to help direct us across different fair trade unions, logos, and everything. We don't have an app, but Sophie, would you like to take this on how we do have some resource and how we can guide us through this?
Yeah, like actually I was really surprised because I thought there should be like numerous apps, but I didn't find any. So I found one source which has like a few fair trade logos and which is quite detailed on their criteria. So it's worth having a look, but it's just like a few labels. So you mentioned like so many more that exist and they are not included in the guide, but still it's really nice to see what like different labels do. So I'll just like post it in the chat in a second.
Another question that's come up is, do you know of an overview that compares all of the criteria of the fair trade labels in details?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same wish then. So yeah, unfortunately not so far, but yeah, if you have a look on the handout, it will give you some ideas.
Thank you for the question, Mathu. Do you think sustainable and healthy eating is affordable for everyone? What are your thoughts on this, Liam?
Hi, so I think there at the moment, healthy eating is certainly it's very hard for everyone to be able to eat healthily, because it often involves spending a lot of money at the grocery shop to buy organic food and to also take a real interest in what you're eating. But I think as time goes on and as prices come down and people become there becomes a lot more demand for healthy food options, prices should come down. And I think, especially during the COVID times, healthy eating there's been an increased demand for healthy eating, and I think there's a lot of brands coming out which placed a great deal of focus on healthy food options. So I guess time will tell. But I think slowly there'll be a trajectory towards more accessible and more affordable healthy eating options.
I might have something to add to this, which is also included in one of the comments concerning CSA and how the pricing is working. So actually, some CSAs have the possibility to kind of negotiate their prices between the members. So like people who don't earn so much money or don't have or are not willing to give so much money, they can pay less, and other people are stepping in and pay more. Like it's a solidarity principle. So actually, this works quite well for like making this like sustainable food available for everyone.
Yeah. So there's another interesting question here. In the 1970s, plankton was suggested as a sustainable food source for 2022 urban world population suffering from the greenhouse effect. Do you think Soylent Green could be a future option? To be honest, the moment I read this question and I read the word plankton, SpongeBob and Squidward and all of these things came in my mind before thinking about them as viable food options. But yes, considering we do have a lot of resources of going under the water for our food sources, and we have so many seaweed, paper, and everything, probably more options of soil and greens or underwater crops could be fair options for future. But I don't think we have reached there yet, considering we're already in 2022. But it could for sure be a great future option, because I've heard of so many things about underwater plants being grown even right now.
And I also think I read an article about like water cycles and how to use like different techniques of like growing food and then like extracting the water and putting it down like back again. So it might be quite efficient way. But maybe there are other like ways of I don't know, living more sustainable or like producing food more sustainable. So
Yeah. Another question, what should local authorities be doing to support sustainability in food production? What do you think the right answer for this should be, Liam?
So I'd say I'd probably split it into two very key areas of the food production supply chain, which is probably shipping, so transportation, and also packaging as well. So in terms of transportation, I know there's been a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on greener methods of transportation, so looking at electric vehicles and electric cars. And I think certainly there needs to be a lot more investment into that and a lot more exploration of those options. But I also think there needs to be a lot of focus on on decreasing the amount of time for transportation of our food and what we eat. So looking at local industries and local producers as much as foreign producers. And I think that was certainly the case over the last couple of years when we've seen supply chain disruption, that we are increasingly relying on food. So in the UK, food grown in the UK. And I think that's going to be really important going forward. And then finally on packaging, I know supermarkets, and I remember when I went to Tesco's last, they put a lot more attention on not using bags which can't be recycled, trying to avoid using single-use plastic. And I think that's been great. And I think the local authorities and certainly the government have spent a lot of time on that. But going forward, I think it's just going to have to continue, and there's going to be find new ways of doing that. So whether that's banning all single-use plastic or just not providing any bags. I know we most of us take reusable bags to the shops, but they still do provide their own bags. And so I think just finding as many options as possible. But I think the government has done a lot of good work in this area up till now.
Thank you, Liam. So I think we have time for one last question, which is, what do you think about a vegan diet to reduce the carbon footprint as much as we can? So I personally think yes, vegan diets are a great way to reduce the carbon footprint, but they're not always the easiest step to take, because people are so used to having a lifestyle filled with meat and everything that it is not an easy transition for people to take. So even if we try to take more sustainable and healthy, easy options in our own lifestyle based off of like small things, like I remember seeing lots of grapes packets in Tesco. Some of them were imported and some of them were through local places. So if we just choose the local option as well, we save so much in terms of carbon footprints that it could add up to make a big difference. But yes, if anybody is interested in trying to explore a vegan diet, this is the best time, because UK celebrates Veganuary and we have so many more options, especially in January, to experiment this diet.
I'd also just say I think it's really important to talk about education here. I think educating people not only on the vegan diet, but environmental issues and sustainability in general is so important, and people shouldn't be forced into going down one option or one avenue. And I think they're more inclined to follow scientists and follow the science when they're educated about it and when they understand it, instead of just being told what to do.
Yes. So now we'll just take the slide back to the Mentimeter slide and leave it on for a minute. So anybody who lost a chance could just fill it up right now. And thank you so much for everybody who got the chance to log in and stayed with us. We hope you had a great time and actually have some takeaways from this. Please feel free to go for the quiz and answer the questions in your own free time. Take a snap of this and get back to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.